This is the story of a man who wants to be left the hell alone. 30 hours of gameplay down to 15 minutes. Let's go. Scrolling text letting us know Earth was destroyed and that it was all our own fault. Now about the video game. It's the future, so Amazon has upped its delivery game to people. Elon Musk helped us out and sent drone pods down to first to scout the planet. But we have to go collect the data manually because Elon has never automated anything in his life. Together they developed a pod entirely too big for people, and we went exploring in a vehicle we stole from Mass Effect. We ignore the fact that no one's wearing a hazard suit for the first contact with the planet, and we get moving. It's fine. Yeehaw over here will tell us to rub some dirt in it and walk it off if we ever get sick. I'm getting a sense that everybody in this game ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. The game can't decide what ratio it wants the cutscenes to be in and changes it 10 times in the first 10 minutes. I wanted to like and subscribe when I saw the perfect ratio, but sadly I'm stuck watching a YouTube video, so I guess I should probably subscribe to Horizon Shield. We set up base camp, and we get a scene of Sergeant Major Asshole telling a scientist to screw procedure, because we've never seen that go wrong before. Yeehaw gives us the backstory on why we're here, and tells us Earth stopped communicating with them 15 years after the start of their journey, saying that they didn't love us anymore. But we're here now, and that we can have our own little house on the prairie that we've always wanted. The other ship that was built blew up and killed all the real Outriders. It makes sense now that everybody's an idiot. All the smart people were on the other ship. Oh, and everyone is a mercenary now, and they are all called Outriders. Name drop. But they don't actually tell you that part. That's part of the optional dialogue. We meet Scientist Lady again, and she takes a selfie. For science. Now off to find the Wicked Witch of the West and see nature at its finest. We find a science pod that we have to go and push a button on, because once again, they're all dumb as bricks, and automating that would mean the game ends before it even starts. It tells us of another probe over yonder, the spooky forest. So we gather our friends to go grab a slice of the local pizza. We find some gravity-defying goo, and find out what happens when you take drugs from a stranger. We stop Science Lady from doing the dumbest thing a scientist could possibly do, and we meet the local wildlife. We find the pod, and then everything goes sideways. Turns out it wasn't the pod making the noise, and it was just E.T. phoning us from the pizza joint across town. But we were just too stupid to realize the signal we're tracking isn't from a pod, because we've never found a pod before, obviously. A storm rolls in and fucks us up like Mike Tyson. This chick becomes an advertisement for Will It Blend, and we decided to take a dump. Our Uber driver ate too much pizza and vomits everywhere. We meet Major Asshole again and learn he told the ship that everything is a-okay down here, that everybody's totally not dying. Yeehaw talks back to Major Asshole, and Major Asshole becomes a Major Asshole and murders him, saying that he wants pineapple on his pizza. We pick a fight with him because we don't want pineapple on this pizza, and we get blown up, but our plot armor saves us. The future called and they need a pizza delivery for Icy Wiener, so we volunteer. We dream of sunshine and rainbows but get woken up by a doctor that should really know better than to ask questions to someone who's been woken up for cryo for 30 seconds. He tells us that he's going to get some cigarettes and never comes back. We stumble out and meet Kindergarten Cop that got a hold of a crayon, drew on his face. He doesn't like us and throws us out of the car to die in the oncoming storm. Lucky for him, we get fucking impaled. Unlucky for him, we turn out to be immortal because we have plot armor and we get superpowers. You can bet your ass we're gonna hunt him down the first chance we get. Our first action as an immortal is to go into a homicidal rage. We get stopped by a superpowered zombie like us who looks like he could probably use some sun and sounds like he could use a bottle of water. Instead of murking us right there, he decides to talk us to death. He learns that we are one of the original Outriders, so he saves our lives and sends us back to his base. We get there and we find Scientist Lady, who apparently got very old, who is entirely too nonchalant about seeing us again.
You're alive.
I'm sorry to disappoint you.
She tells us it's been 31 years and anything more than a grease engine got fried by the storms. Because plot. But cars, lights, and antennas still work apparently? Hell yeah, let's go plot. We rescue the Russian and together the booze cruise gives us the rundown. Shit's fucked and they never found the pizza place. We give them a reveal about us being a superhuman, and why the hell is the Russian shocked? He literally saw us take out like 30 guys. Turns out supplies are scarce, so there aren't any pizza places in town, so we have to go find who stole them. We run into our old friend Kindergarten Cop and we get revenge for the dick move he pulled. The supplies are held by an Electro, and in a shocking turn of events, we use him to satisfy our bloodthirst momentarily. We meet the zombie again, but he doesn't help us because he's a dick. His voice gets significantly less cool, and he tells us why we shouldn't be helping random people and should lead the people to the best pizza joint on the planet. He says his job is to hunt down the bad superhumans, so he's going to fight Moloch, was actually the pagan god of child sacrifice. Seriously, look it up. We go back to the booze cruise and they talk about the signal. They need to find the right frequency, but they never thought about just turning the knob and trying a few out because our arthritis got in the way. Thankfully, we just wrote it down in our hand. We go find a doctor, but it turns out he's not that kind of doctor, so he can't help when the girl gets throat punched by a bullet. We hijack a truck that has a pizza box, but it's not pizza inside, so I stopped caring. It was just an uplink to the ship that's still in the sky. But that uplink can send pizza supplies to us if we contact again, so I'm interested. It was sealed in a metal that doesn't exist that protects it from the anomaly, because plot. Now we have to go find the signal for literally no reason, but first we need to find an antenna. Why don't we just use the antenna for the uplink? It still works, right? It is becoming painfully obvious that all the intelligent people died on the first ship. We detour and find Lava Shelob, who turns out to be a bobbit worm from hell. My girlfriend loved that part, by the way. Now we can take a ride to the tower. We get to the tower and know the direction of the signal, but not what's causing it. It looks like this path is going to lead us through the forest. That same forest that had the fungus of death that kills literally everything that goes into it. Ignore the fact that everybody else got out alive the first time. Obviously, we just go around the forest, but the plot demands we go directly through it. So we head towards the forest of death. First, we stop in a camp to pick up a prisoner. Russian turns out to be a dick and volunteers us to fight somebody else's war to save the prisoner. Prisoner is actually his daughter. I understand family, but what the fuck, man? Not cool. Turns out the zombie that literally spanked our ass in the beginning got murked by the god of child sacrifice. Oof. We fight the war and win, but get ambushed by Moloch. Turns out he isn't that powerful because we just pump him full of bullets. He blows himself up, but does a shitty job of it because he doesn't die and he doesn't kill us either. The daughter tells us that she took LSD and saw the same vision as us, and that she's coming along regardless of what we think. We go to the forest after sealing the truck to make sure we don't die of the fungus. We get into the forest of death, King Kong wrecks our shit, and we get thrown in the most random boss fight ever. Our friends get kidnapped, but we try to stop him. Turns out they want to help us and just invite us to a barbecue. And they have the cure for the death fungus thing. We get backstory in the Russian how the other ship got destroyed because somebody sneezed in the engine room. Nice fireworks. We talk to Wreck-It Ralph, who turns out to be a prisoner, and he tells us he knows where they took the doctor. We add him in with a Brady Bunch that we're collecting, and we go look for the doctor. Turns out they were using bone marrow for the cure, but they were murdering people to get it, so that's awkward. Gonna be dead in a minute tells us to take as much of the cure as we want, and we say sure, fuck the rest of the town because they aren't gonna be using it anymore, and we go ahead and kill him to satisfy our homicidal rage, yet again. We find an alien locked in his basement, Genki. After we free it, it disappears, and Wreck-It Ralph decides he wants to join us beyond the forest. We find the ruins of Blockbuster and keep exploring. Turns out we have a mobile antenna. Why the fuck do we not just put this on top of the car and start driving? A storm rolls on top of us, and our alien friend decides to pop a Titan bubble from Destiny. Dumbasses thinks the alien is making the storm and tries to stop the alien, but gets shanked for doing it. She gets superpowers and tries to kill us. Turns out they were temporary, and she crushes herself. Apparently she severed her spinal cord but doesn't die. Nor does she die from internal hemorrhaging from having her legs crushed into jam. Like, what the fuck, dude? Plot, I swear to God. We find the biggest door on the planet that would never be practical for any reason ever. This door leads to a massive desert that has storms raging in it. Well, that's depressing. I just really hope the sand isn't going to be in my pizza. We hide from the sandstorm and all have a heart-to-heart talking about our feelings. The gang gets surprised at a random fire and we decide that we want s'mores. The only thing we find is s'more enemies. Turns out they don't like us very much and they kidnapped everybody in our caravan while we were trying to make friends. Alien leads us to JCPenney's and we find our friends. The Russian decides to drink while his daughter's getting choked. We reenact the scene from Die Hard, but we shoot the guy and pull a reverse Hans Gruber. The Russian gets shanked. We get the worst fucking boss fight of all time, and then he runs away like a little bitch. We find trucks that look like ours, but aren't ours because they're too advanced to be ours. I guess humans were already here or something. We learn the locals control the weather, and that the boss we just fought is going to be the final boss, or I sell both my kidneys. We find an outpost that was apparently built by humans, and also has journals written in English. Okay. We already know the rest of the story is going to be a letdown, so we just keep going anyways. We find a canyon with giant pillars, and the alien wants to go investigate. We get ambushed by whatever the fuck these things are all over the planet. I'm thrown off the whole cutscene because it keeps switching ratios, because nobody ever actually played the game after they made it. The alien terms himself savage, protects Wreck-It Ralph, but then beats the shit out of him in a homicidal rage. Now everybody's sad because we have to put him down. We find a city that we learned was inhabited by the locals of the planet before they were enslaved by the humans that got here before us. We reach the highest point in the city for no reason and look out the balcony. We find the ship that exploded. Wait, what? The Brady Bunch try to explain everything that's going on at this point, but my god, I'm over it. I guess ET wasn't so extraterrestrial, and was just another human phoning us from the crashed ship. Damn, I was really looking forward to that pizza. We try to guilt trip the fuck out of the nicest person in the game that just lost his best friend because we are all assholes, and I decide that I'm officially over this game. Have I ever told you guys that I hate convoluted stories? Because my god, I fucking do. We go over a hill and find a concentration camp, and I'm actually stunned. Didn't think this game would get that dark. We fight to the ship and find a video that matches our LSD vision, which is what the planet looked like 30 years ago. Then we go find the guy who sent the signal. He's been living in the same room for 30 years because there are no other exits to the room and the door was locked. He explained that they just rebuilt the exact same ship that blew up and assumed that whatever blew it up in the first place wasn't going to happen again. They gave it a new engine that was just better than the one that was in our ship and beat us to the planet. We kill him in cold blood as revenge for the genocide of the locals. Take that, Space Hitler. It's now that we decide we have to use the uplink and we go fight the boss. Apparently now we are worried about the ship losing power if the hull gets torn away. The hull gets torn away as we start our fight, but we ignore that. Welcome to the two-part boss fight that has no mechanics, and the boss is just a bullet sponge. The second phase is just dumb, so I dropped the difficulty because I want the game to be over with already. We win the fight, but the storm still messes up the ship. We get our climactic end sequence where the doctor chooses the life of the few over the lives of the many because he is horrible at saving people. And they get saved by Wreck-It Ralph. Lip Sync goes to hell in the final sequence, and it turns out the pods got launched anyways. We find out that we were stalked the entire game by a group of people just following us. We decide that we're done with everybody's shit and want to be left the hell alone, so we walk off into the sunset to make our own pizza place. The credits roll and we get cuts of different characters we interact with over the story. The end. Almost. Then we get a screen showing us what the actual endgame is. We need to find 40,000 of a new resource. Turns out we get like 40 per mission to start. Even better, the true ending just has you kill the same guy that you killed twice already and doesn't give you a new cutscene. The pagan god of child sacrifice from earlier? Yeah, we kill him in a fucking side quest in this part of the game. Yeah, I'm over it. And that is the story of a man who was so far over it, he just wants to be left the hell alone. This shit's not over? Ah, fuck me. Do I want to actually do this? Son of a bitch.